Hey, what's up? It's Steve. I'm back with another video. This time I'm going to be talking a little bit about a lot of the recent controversies and disputes and arguments that have been going on in the shared universe of online writing and kind of all the things that I think have led to that and some things that we can do to improve the situation maybe a little bit. I know it is tough to improve because of the nature of social media and the nature of the situation in general, but I just had a few ideas that maybe it could help. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see. um, but basically, the first thing I did want to touch on that I think plays into a bunch of the disputes and the negativity and the arguments that have been happening recently um, is the idea of subjectivity, and that's in terms of people's writing, different magazines, the type of writing that they're publishing, kind of this idea that a lot of the newer magazines or many of the magazines in this online writing space in this shared universe, whatever term I just made up you want to call it, kind of the idea that all 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 those people do is like publish their friends in this magazine, and then the friend who is published in this magazine, they have their own magazine, and now it's like this, doing favors for each other, and it's not taking into account the actual quality of the writing, and they're not trying to explore interesting ideas and to improve the craft of writing and support writers that are really taking things seriously and trying to put out the best work that is possible. So on that note, I personally uh, don't believe that that's happening. I know a lot of the dispute is, or a lot of the arguments pop up over this idea of, the only reason these magazines exist is to publish other people's writing who the editors are friends with, and then, all that stuff. But the idea of subjectivity, I think, is a really big part of it, and it comes into play because people have totally different tastes when it comes to what they're interested in, what kind of writing they want to be reading, what kind of writing they want to be publishing with their own magazine, and those ideas and those artistic aesthetics can be so completely different from what other people want to be reading and want to be writing as writers themselves and want to be publishing in their own literary magazines, that it can be completely alien to the two sides, that someone could even like the writing that is being published by the other side. So, if there's one side that is really favoring, the 1980s kind of like Kmart realism type of, Raymond Carver, Frederick Bartholomew, Mary Robeson, uh, Lydia Davis, a lot of those minimalist type of realist American writers, and they're really diving into the craft of that style. um, they're probably not going to like the work that's being published in other magazines that focus on more experimental type of stuff and just more really weird type of writing and stuff like Always Crashing or Gone Lawn or Bending Genres or My Magazine Scaffold or Had, some of the other ones that do have a lot of these weird structures, pop culture references, just bizarre ideas that are technically not stories with a beginning, middle, and end. Um, and those things really go against the craft and the traditional story structure that the writers and editors of other types of magazines are really looking for and that they're interested in and that they value and that they personally love to read and to write themselves. So I can see both sides of this being like, if you love that 1980s Kmart realism style and you see these weird, just bizarre non-stories being published all the time in these other magazines, and it's a lot of the same similar people popping up a lot of the time, and it's just these weird like fragmentary, like if they're list stories or if they're rambling monologues with no punctuation. There's no beginning, middle, and end. There's no characters. There's no character names. It could be in the second person. The main character could be an animal, a dog, whatever. It's just all this really weird, bizarre stuff. I can completely understand, coming from the perspective of a more structured writer and reader, thinking that that's just like kind of nonsense, and the people who are running those magazines, they're kind of diluting the craft and the writers who are taking things more seriously and who actually want to improve in the craft and who actually want to put out great work from their perspective. So I totally understand that perspective, and I, I totally understand the idea that, from the side of the more experimental writers, who are trying to push the boundaries and trying to always do something that's new and interesting and weird, and taking a lot of risks, and a lot of times those risks don't translate. A lot of times those risks can come off as kind of like the modern art or like the super modern art or the super postmodern art type of like the banana taped to the wall type of stuff, where it's just like, that's complete nonsense, like that's like, what are you even doing there? Like, so I totally understand that it can just be an experiment that doesn't work. And when people from the other side view that, and you see these magazines are constantly putting work out like that, it can be something that just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't seem like they're taking the craft of writing seriously. But yeah, subjectivity is a really big thing, and I think we can. I think I'm going to try my best to not say that anyone should do something or something needs to be done to decrease these arguments and disputes and stuff. I just think people on both sides should try their best. Try, like, people can do whatever they want. They're going to do whatever they want. That's totally fine. It's the internet. Everyone makes jokes. Everyone has fun. Everyone trolls. You know, that stuff's totally fine. But just taking a minute or two and just trying to remind yourself that subjectivity is a really big thing, and that something that you personally might think has no value in terms of writing and improving the craft of the writing and moving things forward and creating great work. The other people who are creating that experimental work might be really excited by that work, and they might really enjoy kind of like the thought-provoking nature of stuff, of these very experimental works that can be super fragmentary or like very minimalist, or just very experimental. I'm trying to think of different synonyms to use, but coming up dry right now. But yeah, so if I think it's a good idea for everyone to keep in mind that subjectivity is such a big thing. And the thing that I always try to keep in mind is, if there's, you know, a movie, a band, or something that people say, you know, I love this movie so much, I love this band so much, I love this genre of music so much, and I don't like it at all, like 0% I like it. It's not that they're lying or they're making it up or they have bad taste. It's just they like different things than me. And their taste can be 100% different than my taste. Like if I'm listening to some, you know, death metal album or whatever, I I genuinely love the sound of that album, or else I wouldn't be listening to it. For other people, if you like, you know, pop music or country music and you hear a death metal album, it can be like, how can you actually like the sound of that? Like it's so harsh, it's so grating, you know, it's so dissonant. The vocals, they're not even singing, it's just like demonic screaming and stuff, like, but there are, you know, musical and sonic and lyrical elements, you know, and structural elements that come together to make that a package that I absolutely love. So I think that's one big thing to keep in mind, is just that the subjectivity can cause a lot of disagreements and misunderstandings and stuff in terms of you know, what's going on with online writing and a lot of these arguments and stuff. Another thing that I had that I thought about was, I think it might be a good idea to try. Again, I know this especially is really fun, and it's tough to kind of break out of this, but possibly trying to bond over positivity instead of negativity. So I believe there's William Duryea who had a post recently or within the past week where he basically said, if more people were talking about, you know, the books they loved or the literature that they loved, then there would be less time for people to be arguing and, you know, getting into arguments over like how narcissistic everyone was or something. Like, I forget what his exact words are. I don't have it pulled up right now. But I agree with that 100%. I really think that bonding over positive things that bring people together would be a more a more constructive practice, rather than bonding over negativity and gossip and arguments. And when something happens, everyone retreats to their sides, and then each side starts sniping at each other and you know, starting arguments with the other side, and then the other side, their friends come in and they start just like, you know, saying negative things and you know, starting different arguments with other people on the other side. I know that stuff can be a bonding experience for the members of each group on each side, and that's where, you know, gossip and you know, in group bonding kind of takes place. It's basically wired into the human brain. But I mean, if it's possible to do more positive, you know, posts about things that you do love, and, you know, try to bond with people over the stuff that you do love, I think that could be a way to cut down on some of the arguments and stuff. But again, that's really tough. If there are two people or two groups on the opposite sides of an issue or an argument, it's going to be really tough for them to come together and be like, yeah, you know, that movie was sick, man. Let's talk about it and forget about that, you know, very ugly argument we had. I know that's going to be really, really tough, but maybe somehow just putting more positivity into the ecosystem can hopefully cut down on some of the some of the negativity that's kind of been simmering for so long and everything. Um, so hopefully that can help a little bit. Um, and one thing that does play into that as well is cutting down a little bit on the gatekeeping aspect of those things that people might be super passionate about um, and really interested in. And like for example, if it is books or literature, or if it is music or movies or stuff, like kind of being more open in terms of talking to other people about whatever bands that you love, whatever games that you love, whatever movies, books, whatever that you love, instead of being kind of standoffish or being gatekeepy about your favorite author, and then someone tries to make a comment about something, a post you made about that author, and then maybe they got something wrong in their post. Instead of kind of like jumping and attacking at them, um, maybe just engage them in conversation about you know the great what makes you love that author, or what makes you love that band and stuff. um, so I mean, just being a little bit more open and positive and compassionate in that way might be helpful. And I realize that I realize these are silly things to say, because that's kind of the standard mode of communication on Twitter is sarcasm and being snarky and making jokes and trolling and stuff. I totally understand that that's 99% of what people do on Twitter and social media and stuff like that. But I think if everyone makes a little bit of a concerted effort to make a more positive reading of posts that they see, that can really help. Because one thing I've personally noted in my own life is that in text-based communications, when all of the nonverbal cues are stripped out, it's really easy for your current mindset, or kind of your online persona, to instantly snap into play and assign an emotional coloring to that text that is in front of you, because that text has been stripped free of nonverbal cues, vocal tone, um, eye contact, all this other stuff. And so you can literally assign a an emotional coloring onto that text that's not there. So if you're in a bad mood, or if you're annoyed at something, or if you're impatient, or if you've had a bad day and you see a post that is kind of ambiguous, a lot of times, without you even knowing, your mind will assign that mood that you're currently feeling onto the text. And that instantly sets you off on kind of like a negative response or a negative reading of that text. So one thing that I do as just like a blanket kind of policy that I try to do is I try to just have a blanket positive reading of every text, unless it's something completely unambiguous, where some person is being really nasty and cursing at you or whatever. Um, yeah, I just try to give people as much of the benefit of the doubt as humanly possible, and then start the interaction or the conversation on a positive note, and try to keep it positive going forward. So I mean, that's one thing that can help. Um, and another thing with gatekeeping, I know this is really tough and it's probably really unpopular, and I'm sure um, I'm sure a lot of people would not agree with this whatsoever, and I totally understand that. But I try, I try to put aside the, as best that I can. I try to put aside the beliefs, um, the politics, the whatever really strong issues that person uh, believes in, and I try to engage with them just as a human being, no matter who they voted for, no matter who they are a fan of, no matter uh, you know what their favorite sports team is, whatever, blah blah blah. I try to put those things aside and try to interact with the person just as a human being. Like, just because that person voted for someone else, or if they didn't vote, or if they're this political party or that political party, or whatever, if they have whatever beliefs, that doesn't make them a bad person. Like, that doesn't make them an evil human being. That doesn't make them, a terrible person, or someone who is not worthy of even interacting with. For the most part, there are obviously extreme exceptions with that, but in 99% of cases, like, I try my best to not just like discount entire human beings as like, oh, that person, believes that thing, so they're a terrible person who doesn't even deserve my time to be spoken to. Like, so I try to put that stuff aside and interact with the person just as a human being, and give them as much respect as possible, no matter who they voted for, no matter what they believe, no matter um, what their opinions on whatever political candidate or whatever country or whatever. I don't even pay attention to politics, so I don't know what's going on with that stuff. But um, yeah, and I know that's a really unpopular thing, and a lot of people don't do that, and a lot of people won't do that, because that does compromise their beliefs, and that's totally fine. But that's just something that I try to do in order to uh, maintain more um, pleasant interactions and more respect for people, because I think everyone does deserve respect, and to be uh, you know given the benefit of the doubt in an interaction, and everyone deserves to be given the opportunity to have a good faith conversation about whatever they want. Like, I'll I'm not in any group chats. I don't talk to too many people via email or DMs or anything like that. Um, but I'm open to having a good faith conversation with basically anyone about anything. So and I try to be as respectful as humanly possible in that manner. So um, yeah, and I mean, I understand all of this stuff can be really difficult. This type of behavior can open you up to being a subject of ridicule. It can get you being made fun of. Like, I know it myself. I've been a lolcow before. Like, I'm totally fine with that. I don't pay attention to any of that stuff. That's totally fine with me. People are going to talk no matter what I do or say, so that's nothing I can control. So I don't pay attention to it. But maybe some of these things can help a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we'll see going forward. I think things will settle down going forward, but yeah, I think just keeping in mind about the subjectivity issue, trying to bond over positivity instead of negativity, lowering the threshold of gatekeeping and just, treating people with respect and being open to good faith, honest conversation, no matter who they are, no matter what they believe, no matter what, political or social, whatever thing they support. I just think that stuff is important, and it could be helpful, or, people could, make an AI picture of me doing something stupid. I don't know. It's totally fine. But yeah, hopefully some of that stuff helps. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching.